Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 194 based on novel. So let's start. You're the long braid girl. As Qin Mu examined the girl with the two long braids, he couldn't help thinking about the girl he had met in the darkness. In delight, he asked, "Is that really you?" The girl back then had also had two long braids, but because they were situated in two different worlds, they couldn't talk or even see each other's faces. They could only take note of the other's silhouette. They had once been through a long night together and avoided the pursuit of the heavenly devil horde. But the sun had risen and the darkness retreated. The girl had then vanished along with the dark realm. The girl standing on the shoulder of the god in front of Qin Mu also had long braids that were hanging down to her waist. When she heard the mention of a girl with long braids, and she couldn't help becoming delighted and surprised. She hurriedly jumped down from the shoulder of the god and came to Qin Mu in a few footsteps. Two small dimples appeared on her cheeks. "You're that shadow boy." "Father, he is that shadow boy that later disappeared." The god lowered his head and looked at Qin Mu. He asked suspiciously, "If you're that shadow, why do you have a physical body now? We saw you battling earlier, and it was truly extraordinary. We were wondering where had such an expert came from. You're on 7 Stars Realm. For divine arts practitioners of 7 Stars Realm to have such achievements like yours is very rare in Supreme Emperor Heaven. You're a truly formidable youth." Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly. "There are divine arts practitioners of 7 Stars Realm here that are stronger than me. Are they overlord bodies?" "Overlord bodies." The god picked them up to carry forward while asking with a blank face, "What's overlord body? I've never heard of it before." "They are all youths with the aptitude of true gods, the kings among the spirit bodies. They were born extraordinary, and aren't any overlord bodies. Kings of the spirit bodies." Qin Mu blinked. He had never heard of kings among the spirit bodies, and his mind blanked out. However, excitement grew in his heart once more. Kings among the spirit bodies, youths with aptitudes of true gods, he had been right to come to this world. He had treated himself as an offering to teleport his body to this world. In the battlefield, he had already noticed the extraordinary points of the heavenly devil horde. Their abilities were extremely strong, and if any of them were put in eternal peace, they would all be people who wouldn't be inferior to Pangong Tso. Of course, in terms of escaping abilities, Pangong Tso would still be unrivaled. Supreme Emperor Heaven has been through some 20,000 years of baptism of war. The paths, skills, and divine arts here must have improved at a godly speed. Over here, I might find the way to defeat First Ancestor Human Emperor. His hands clenched into tight fists. Defeating First Ancestor Human Emperor had become his biggest goal. Since he couldn't find hope in defeating him in eternal peace, he might as well go look for it in Supreme Emperor Heaven. Even if he couldn't find it, knowing more paths, skills, and divine arts could also assist him in improving himself. Suddenly, the god rushed into the battlefield, leaving them behind. "You guys remain here." Far away, a tear ripped open in space, and 6 pitch-black hands pulled out. They grabbed hold of the corners of the crack and tried to pull it open wider. The god rushed forward and pulled out his sword to cut off those hands. But just as he took care of 2, a huge hammer suddenly came and sent him away. A devil god had arrived to stop him. The long braid girl watched the battlefield with concentration for a time. She only let out a sigh of relief when she saw that her father was fine, and had returned to kill the devil that had attacked him. "Hey, you guys were not here originally, so why have you appeared here?" He was slightly confused. The place in which he had met this girl was the hinterland of great ruins, while this place was the borders of great ruins that were 20 to 30,000 miles apart. By right, she shouldn't have been anywhere nearby. The long-braid girl's face fell. After you vanished, our city was invaded and many people died. Father was the one that rescued us and brought us to this brilliance-injured city. She rushed forward, and Qin Mu followed after her in a hurry. When I disappeared, it was just as the night became day. So didn't the devils in your Supreme Emperor Heaven vanish? The long-braid girl was puzzled. Why would they vanish? Qin Mu was stunned. He had thought that Supreme Emperor Heaven was like great ruins, and also faced the invasion of darkness. When he had walked through it and the darkness retreated, he had also left Supreme Emperor Heaven. But from the looks of it now, the situation in Supreme Emperor Heaven was different from that of great ruins. The devils didn't vanish upon the rising of the sun, but stayed without any limits. It looks like Juqian Devil King was right. The world barrier between Supreme Emperor Heaven and the Devil's world has been compressed and broken. Qin Mu was astonished. Since his guess was completely accurate, his other guess will probably come true as well. After the devils take over Supreme Emperor Heaven, they will sacrifice it for the Devil world to collide with Eternal Peace world. But how can I stop that? The long-braid girl rushed down to the altar while saying quickly, "You have fought for a while, so you should go to Brilliance Injured City to rest first. I still need to fight with the army. This bit of injury is nothing." Qin Mu quickly caught up with her and said, "I'm also an apothecary and am quite famous in my world. I've already treated myself just now. I've come here to seek stronger skills, since many in my world have been lost throughout the ages." The mountain-like sacrificial altar had already been taken by the Heavenly Devil Horde, with the lead of the Heavenly Devil General that had blown Qin Mu over 10 miles away. Several hundred soldiers of the Heavenly Devil Horde were fighting with divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven up the altar. The latter's situation was extremely bitter. The Heavenly Devil General at the highest point of the sacrificial altar was casting divine arts. In the sky, lumps of dark lightning rolled and scattered through the ground. Everywhere they passed, the flesh of divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven would dissolve, turning them into running skeletons. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes. The fierceness and strangeness of the divine arts of the devil race were even higher than what the divine arts practitioners that cultivated the devil path in Heavenly Devil cult could show. The long-braid girl rushed up the altar. "My father and I had seen it when we were observing the battle in Brilliance Injured City. Even though you are very powerful, your magic power is ridiculously strong, your divine arts are incomparably exquisite, your achievements in the divine arts are extremely high, your techniques seem to have a problem. You showed no true god-level techniques, and my father said that there's a gap in your civilization." The girl faced a Heavenly Devil Horde soldier, who was an Azura with extremely strong abilities and corporeal body. His attacks were incomparably fast when he suddenly trembled, revealing all kinds of rune markings, as though they were carved into his skin. However, the corporeal body of the long-braid girl was also ridiculously strong. The two of them fought with speed, hiding their divine arts between their palms and fingers. Like that, the outcome of the battle was decided in an instant. The long-braid girl shattered the heart of her opponent by jabbing at the heart of his brows. The head of that Azura exploded, and his corpse fell to the ground, rolling down the steps of the altar. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched. He saw that the divine arts of the girl weren't more exquisite than his. In truth, they were really crude, but her technique had extraordinary points. The long-braid girl continued to fight her way up the altar while speaking to him. "Father said that many parts of your body are already no inferior to those of the divine arts practitioners with aptitudes of true God. For example, your hands, heart, dantian, legs, and eyes have already reached extremely high achievements. However, your hands are hands, legs are legs, heart is heart, dantian is dantian. Looking at them alone, your achievements are extremely high, but your corporeal body hasn't unified them, so you have not reached the aptitude of a true god. Compared to a young true god, you're slightly inferior. Throughout her speech, she killed several people with her fierceness. She walked step by step up to the top of the sacrificial altar. With her breaking up the disposition of troops, the other divine arts practitioners gained spirit and frantically rushed toward the top of the altar as well. Yet more heavenly devil horde flooded over to block them, holding back their momentum. Qin Mu transformed into Saturn's sovereign's form and swept gate of heaven influence forward. The heavenly devil horde soldiers, which got caught, instantly lost their souls and collapsed. He looked around and nodded. The long-braid girl had been right. The divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven indeed possessed an advantage over the divine arts practitioners of Eternal Peace. Their divine arts weren't exquisite, but their power was much stronger. Their changes in moves couldn't be compared to those in Eternal Peace, but because of their strong corporeal bodies, the power of their moves was much greater. This should have been the effect of their techniques. Even people as powerful as Butcher, Mute, Cripple, Granny Sai, Blind, and the rest had only one thing in which they were skilled and had cultivated to God realm. They couldn't reach such heights in all fields. Even if it was a sicko like Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, the saint that appears once every 500 years, he too couldn't reach God realm in every field. Yet the techniques of the divine arts practitioners in Supreme Emperor Heaven were a grade higher, so all parts of their bodies had received training. They developed in all fields, and so their battle power was even greater. No wonder all of the divine arts practitioners and devils in Supreme Emperor Heaven are so strong. Qin Mu suddenly had a feeling of the dark clouds parting and the sky becoming clear. The purpose of his journey was to find the method to defeat first ancestor human emperor, and now he finally saw a ray of dawn. However, your magic power is strong and your divine arts are exquisite, so even though you are lacking, you can still hold your place in a battlefield. In Supreme Emperor Heaven, there shouldn't be many people stronger than you on the same realm. The long-braid girl continued to talk in a loud voice, telling Qin Mu about her father's opinion of him. Your technique is too scattered, though. When you train your eyes, you just train your eyes. When you train your hands, you just train your hands. And when you train your heart, you just train your heart. You're training all of them separately. If you unified all parts of your body and was able to cultivate your corporeal body, magic power, primordial spirit, and also divine arts together, you would have another astonishing leap in power. However, all of this happened because your technique was too scattered. If you wanted to combine everything into one now, it would probably be incomparably difficult. Qin Mu let out a shaky breath. The long-braid girl was only passing on her father's opinion since she couldn't have that kind of judgment and knowledge herself, but she had indeed pointed out Qin Mu's weakness, or in fact, the entire Eternal Peace Empire's weakness. Throughout that land's history, as long as the divine arts practitioners gained achievements in one area, it would be enough for them to stand at the top of the world. However, since they didn't string all these achievements together, the technique had never become a system. This was because they were all the later generations of people who had escaped from the disaster 20,000 years, and there was a huge gap in their inheritance. They had cultivated hard and the wise had researched the divine arts, but they could never break through the shackles of technique. The two finally fought to the top of the sacrificial altar. Hundreds of divine arts practitioners fought against the heavenly devil horde that was attacking up from below while the rest surrounded heavenly devil general. A bunch of dogs and chickens. The heavenly devil general laughed loudly, with his primordial spirit standing behind him overflowing with flames. His four heads surveyed the surroundings, as the huge flags on his back flew up. He sneered and said, "Killing you guys is as easy as flipping over a palm." The long-braid girl and the rest looked at him with grim expressions. The heavenly devil general's abilities were extremely high, and even Qin Mu didn't dare to receive his attack head-on. The four-headed devil could probably take one of their lives with a single move. Looks like the next step of Eternal Peace Empire's reform should deal with technique. Beside the Braid girl, Qin Mu seemed to be in deep thought as he took out a huge jade eye from his Dao Tai sack. His hand made some tweak at its back. Do you think I can construct a bridge to connect eternal peace to your Supreme Emperor Heaven? Qin Mu asked. I want the divine arts practitioners of eternal peace to come here for experience and to open up their horizons. The long braid girl was extremely nervous, and cold sweat kept rolling down her forehead. She said angrily, "Why are you asking so many questions? Stop thinking about other things for now. With the enemy in front of us, if we don't kill him." Light burst forth from the jade eye, and the heavenly devil general leaped up, but he was still split apart in midair. Qin Mu closed the jade eye and took out a bunch of tools for calculation, along with stacks of papers, before squatting down on the ground to record some numerical symbols. Next, he took out a bunch of measuring spirit weapons, then continued to draw. He didn't even raise his head, and when he said, "I want to construct a bridge that could connect the two worlds together. However, that requires a huge amount of calculations. Do you have any experts skilled in calculations? I think if we can maintain the balance of the two worlds' energy, it should be possible." What happened? Why are you all looking at me with such strange gazes? The two halves of the heavenly devil general fell from the sky before he had even breathed his last. When he landed, he twitched a few times. He was an expert of celestial being realm, and had even grown 4 heads. Qin Mu had used Moon Jade Eye to slice him into half, but with his powerful life force, he didn't die from that right away. His 4 heads stared ruthlessly at Qin Mu, but he gradually ran out of energy and died. In the surroundings, numerous divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven couldn't wipe away the astonishment on their faces. They stared blankly at the big boy that was calculating by himself in the bloody battlefield. The fiendish heavenly devil general had been a great expert of celestial being realm, and a famous young strong practitioner among the devil race to top that. His abilities were profound and ineffable, so if he had made his move, hundreds of people would have probably died on the altar. Yet he had been stopped. Who is this? A divine arts practitioner of Supreme Emperor Heaven asked in a low voice. Beside him, someone said, he was devil god Fu Riluo's disciple, and among the devil experts of celestial being realm, he is ranked number 7. He was known as a strong practitioner that would grow into a true devil, the most favorite disciple of Fu Riluo. No, I'm talking about him. I have no idea. The long braid girl pulled Qin Mu up with a smile. You just killed Fu Yuxiao. This fellow had a very high position among the devils of celestial being realm. You've done huge merit. Qin Mu took a glance at the corpse with astonishment. His position was high. No wonder then that he was so powerful. If I hadn't learned that move from Saint Woodcutter, I probably wouldn't have even been able to take a blow from him. He squatted down again and continued to calculate. The long braid girl looked at the jade eye and asked suspiciously, "How did you kill him?" This eye. It was made by gods during High Emperor era. They constructed the formation on the moon to use its power, Qin Mu said before focusing on his calculations once more. Fu Yuxiao had 4 heads, which controlled his body at the same time. This would result in a conflict of consciousness, but when he encountered something, his 4 heads didn't control his body separately. His reaction should have been muscle memory. I just needed to calculate it according to his divine arts and moves and what his muscles would do when he's in danger. After knowing that, I activated this moon jade eye. When he jumped into the sky, he would collide with the ray and kill himself. The long braid girl stared at him with her eyes wide open, astonishment evident on her face. He would jump into the attack to kill himself. Calculations could be used like that. How had he calculated it? Do you have any experts skilled in algebra here? Qin Mu opened his Daotai sack, and the calculation spirit weapons flew back inside. He frowned and said, to build the world bridge, a lot of calculations are needed. If it was just me doing it, I reckon I'd need half a year to calculate the equation for sacrificial spirit energy conversion and shifting. Only then would I be able to establish the space algebra model for the bridge that stretches across the two worlds. The surroundings were silent. After a moment, the long-braid girl asked in an astringent voice, "What did you just say?" Equation. Equation. Mathematical equation is used to find the variable. Variable. You guys don't know what's variable. Variable is the unknown. Algebra, it's the unknown quantity. Qin Mu raised his head and looked at the expressions of the divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven. These people looked at him as though they were listening to a heavenly book. He couldn't help having a bad feeling and probed, "You guys don't have 10 computational canons here. The most basic 9 writings of calculation. Also never learned them before. How about computational canon of supreme mystery? Have you learned computational canon of native woman? You should have learned the circulatory cycle stars array equation at least, right? This is the calculation regarding meteorological phenomenon." Everyone in the surroundings shook their heads in a daze. The long-braid girl said, "What's the use of learning calculations?" The other people nodded and said with smiles, "We're always fighting on the battlefield, so where would we find the time to learn this? The fastest way to raise our abilities is to train, learn divine arts, and comprehend them." Qin Mu looked at them with anger. "You guys don't calculate meteorological phenomenon. You guys should have calculated the trajectory of the stars in the sky at least, right?" Everyone's expression grew weird, and Qin Mu was bewildered by it. Suddenly, a divine arts practitioner said, "There are no stars in the sky, so what do we calculate?" Qin Mu was stunned and raised his head to look at the sky. The sky of Supreme Emperor Heaven was pitch black, without any stars, just 2 halves of a sun. Qin Mu saw some large-scale constructions on the broken surfaces, but they weren't complete. The half-suns were actually forged. They weren't naturally formed. The thing that made him not know whether to laugh or cry was that the halves weren't even round. When he had come here the last time, he didn't see any sun since it had been night time. Only this time did he see that the sun of Supreme Emperor Heaven was made up of 2 separate halves, and neither of them was even circular. One was a little cubic, the other a little oval, and both distorted in some areas. Qin Mu wanted for nothing more than to fly to the sky and destroy the 2 suns. Even if eternal peace's astronomical phenomenon were fake, they were all formations, and the gods and devils that had constructed them to trick the people were extremely serious. No matter if it was the sun or the moon, they were all round and without any flaws. Even the stars, constellations, and galaxies in the sky were made quite vividly, hiding their fake nature from Dao-sex Taoists for 20,000 years. As a result, Dao Master Lin Xian's Dao heart had collapsed the moment he realized this secret. But it was even worse for Supreme Emperor Heaven, since their half-suns had been made extremely sloppily. With a blank mind, Qin Mu shook his head. The impact that this sight brought him was even stronger than the first sighting of Sun's ship. Of course, it had been a shock brought by the superlative craftsmanship, while this one was the shock brought by the sloppiness of the craft. Not even 1 star. You guys indeed don't need circulatory cycle stars array equation. Qin Mu nodded repeatedly, and the dragon Qilin came to his mind. The divine arts practitioners of this world don't have high attainments in algebra. I had only brought Fatty Dragon along, things would be much easier for me. The divine arts practitioners of this world were fighting daily, because of the invasion of the devil race. If they wanted to live, they had to continuously improve their abilities. The best way to do so was to train their divine arts, strengthen their bodies, and forget better spirit weapons. Algebra to them wasn't very important, and it was even something extremely dry and dull. It didn't improve their abilities at all, so throughout the generations, their attainments in algebra grew worse and worse. More and more divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven came to the sacrificial altar and looked down from above. They all took out longbows and pulled the bowstrings to shoot downward. Arrow lights pierced through the battlefield and killed many devils. There were some divine arts practitioners that were raising sword pellets and knife pellets to attack the enemies from afar as well. Qin Mu suddenly thought of something and asked in a hurry, "How did you guys forge this sacrificial altar?" The long-braid girl was also skilled in archery and pulled her bow to shoot enemies. The sacrificial altar has existed for a long time. I heard from my dad that it was left in Supreme Emperor Heaven for the day we could no longer last. At that time, we could summon a god-sacred teacher who would come forward to help us. Now, Supreme Emperor Heaven is on the verge of falling, so the gods of brilliance injured city placed the altar in the center of the battlefield. With the deaths of everyone fighting, they sacrificed enough blood and flesh. Her face fell. Many people who were sacrificed were divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven. A sacrificial altar left behind from 20,000 years ago. Qin Mu looked at Saint Woodcutter, who was fighting far away. Over there, the battle was even more intense. Saint Woodcutter was bringing down the enemy's camp. The sacrificial altar should have been left behind by Saint Woodcutter for Supreme Emperor Heaven to summon him when won't be able to withstand the attacks any longer. In that case, his goal should be to drag the time for eternal peace. Qin Mu set up his moon jade eye and adjusted the direction. Light rays shot out and killed experts of the devil race. The range of moon jade eye was even greater than that of the bows, and its power was superior as well. He killed the strong practitioners of the devil race with ease, and Qin Mu targeted mostly the generals. Once they died, the devils lost their leaders, and with no command, it became hard for them to form any steady push forward. Even so, more and more heavenly devils were flooding toward the sacrificial altar. People had no time to just shoot the devils far away, and were forced to hit whatever was beneath them. Under the sacrificial altar, corpses piled up into mountains, but the black swarm of devils still continued to come for them. They were about to reach the top of the sacrificial altar. Qin Mu put away his moon jade eye and grabbed his sword pellet to guard the sacrificial altar. The two parties fought fiercely on the top of the altar. The heavenly devil horde was abnormally brave. Its soldiers weren't afraid of death, and if it wasn't for the extraordinary abilities of Supreme Emperor Heaven's divine arts practitioners, it would have been difficult to block their attacks. Beside Qin Mu and the long-braid girl, divine arts practitioners started to fall one by one. Even Qin Mu and the long-braid girl's situation was bad. They had nearly died a few times under the attacks of the enemy. Less and less of their own remained on the sacrificial altar, and soon, only 20-30 were left. Suddenly, a world-shaking shout came from afar, and the devils flooding toward the altar listened to the news. They then quickly fell back. It was like a burden had been lifted off the shoulders of everyone on the sacrificial altar. They took in deep breaths and collapsed onto the floor. All of them were covered in blood. Behind them, a resounding call of the bugle horns and drums rang out. An army of tens of thousands rushed out of Brilliant's injured city to chase after the escaping devil army. The long-braid girl struggled to get up, wanting to chase after the deserters of the devil army, but her legs wobbled, and she could only sit down once again. Qin Mu looked at the army of Brilliant's injured city that was rushing into the distance. As he did so, he suddenly recalled something. "We've been through life and death twice together, yet I still don't know your name." "My name is Qin Mu, what's yours?" The long-braid girl lay in a pool of blood while looking at one misshapen half of a sun. She calmed her breath and said, "My name is Sanang Hua. That day, I said many things to you, but you couldn't hear anything. I was lucky to have you beside me, and it was only because of it that I was able to endure through the fight. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to last that long. Guess." She turned around with two small dimples in her cheeks. "Guess, what did I say to you?" Qin Mu shook his head. "There were two worlds between us. I couldn't hear anything at all." Sanang Hua looked at the sky. "Look, the sun is really big. Our Supreme Emperor Heaven had no sun, but these two were constructed by us with the help of a god. We called him Sun Creator, but before he completed them, Sun Creator God was killed by the devil gods. These suns are very magnificent, right?" Magnificent," Qin Mu acknowledged against his will before curiosity got the better of him. "So what did you say to me that night?" Sanang Hua sat up and turned her back to Qin Mu. She unbuttoned her shirt to see the wounds under her snow-white neck. She took out a jade bottle and squeezed out the clotted blood in her wounds before applying the medicine on herself. "I told you so many things that night that I don't remember them anymore." Her ears turned slightly red. Actually, that night when she had felt that she couldn't escape anymore, she told Qin Mu a lot of silly things, and some of those words could make even boys blush. However, she had said them daringly, because Qin Mu wouldn't be able to hear them anyway. Unexpectedly, she lived through the night, and when she thought she would never see Qin Mu again, the nonsense she'd spoken that night became a different kind of emotion in her memory. Never had she even considered that she would be able to see the boy in the darkness to whom she had shared everything on her mind. Qin Mu raised his head to see the sun, and barely resisted the urge to fly up the sky to grind the suns into dust. He then went around the girl and stretched out his hand to help her apply the medicine. Sanang Hua hurriedly covered herself up. "Men and women should not touch. I'm an apothecary, and I only want to help you apply the medicine. I treat patients like their parents would and don't have any impure thoughts." Only when Sanang Hua remembered him saying that he was a somewhat famous apothecary that her heart eased. She looked curiously at how he applied the medicine on her, noticing that his hand techniques were indeed well trained. She asked suspiciously, "Your algebra attainments are very high, so why are you also skilled in the art of healing?" Qin Mu observed the wound on her chest in detail. "I've learned the art of healing for over 10 years, while I've only studied algebra for 3 years. When you put it like that, I'm much better at healing. How long are you going to look?" Sanang Hua said angrily and raised her hands to cover herself up. Qin Mu hurriedly stopped her and carefully pushed her clothes down to her shoulder. He said, "I treat my patients as their parents would. Your skin is very white, and your shoulders are very smooth. Stop." He frowned slightly. Sanang Hua's wound was left behind by a devil expert, and there was a divine art and devil qi within it, corroding her flesh and vital qi. It was hard to stop the bleeding for this kind of wound, and it was difficult to get rid of the devil qi too. The ointment that was applied to the wound had already been pushed black. It was evident that the medicinal energy had also been tainted by the devil qi. Qin Mu squeezed out the ointment that had turned black and took a sniff. He shook his head. This kind of ointment wasn't effective. "Oh. This ointment is for pulling out the poison. After application, it collects some devil qi and has to be changed." Sanang Hua cried out in pain and took out a few bottles of ointment. "For this kind of wound, I will have to apply it over a dozen times to completely pull the poison out. Your eyes keep sneaking glances, so let me do it." Qin Mu took out some medicinal ingredients from his Dao Tai sack and used his method of refining pills to refine some medicine. Devil poison isn't poison. The problem is in the vital qi attributes of your God path technique that you cultivated clashing with the devil path technique. The ointment you're using isn't an ointment for pulling poison, but a variant of spirit pills which weren't refined to their best state, so they are in an ointment form. This kind of ointment just gets tainted by the devil chi, so it's a waste to use it to pull out the devil chi. While he was speaking, a pill furnace formed by vital chi appeared on his palm, and he just refined his pills within it. He reversed fire and water, mixed them, and used many other kinds of pill refinement methods, which dazzled Sanang Hua's eyes. After a moment, Qin Mu dispersed his vital chi, and over a dozen pills landed in his palm. He crushed one and smeared it on Sanang Hua's wound. In my world, I'm Heavenly Saint Cult Master, who is called Heavenly Devil Cult Master by the people. I have an understanding regarding the devil path. Devil is born in the heart. Whether one is a god or a devil, it's all in the heart. Anyway, I have experience in treating wounds made by divine arts of the devil path. Soon, Sanang Hua felt her wound begin to feel cool, and the devil chi was all pulled out. Her wound started to itch, which was the symptom of the wound starting to heal. My wound is healing so fast. Didn't you just say that you were only a little famous in that world of yours? Sanang Hua stared with her eyes wide open, before secretly bringing her braids to cover her chest. She asked curiously, a little famous apothecary can refine spirit medicine to counter the devil chi so quickly. Qin Mu handed the rest of the spirit pills to her and grinned. I was being humble. Actually, I'm not a little famous, but very famous in that world. But you didn't understand it from my words, did you? He couldn't help feeling pleased. Most people can't hear it. Sanang Hua was bewildered. You aren't going to help me apply the medicine? Qin Mu walked toward other people to treat their injuries. I was only examining the wound back there. You can apply the medicine yourself. Other people need to be saved too. Sanang Hua pulled up her shirt and looked at him who was hurrying here and there. She thought to herself, he indeed treats his patients like their parents would and doesn't have any impure thoughts. This person is a rare gentleman, just that he likes to glance around. Qin Mu treated the injured divine arts practitioners on the sacrificial altar before looking down at the countless people and heavenly devil horde soldiers lying on the battlefield. There were people moving the injured, and there were others finishing off the devils that were still alive. The vast battlefield was full of flames left behind by divine arts. They had ignited chariots, collapsed bodies, flags, and spirit weapons standing diagonally in the ground. Far into the distance, the killing was still continuing. This video will end here.